the extent of the damage, fatalities.
The wildest couples, shocking deaths, and iconic moments of Grey's Anatomy. For over 22 seasons, Grey's Anatomy has kept fans glued to their screens with intense hospital drama, unforgettable romances, and heartbreaking losses. From the most chaotic couples to the most shocking character deaths, the Seattle-based medical series has delivered non-stop drama. Among the craziest couples, Alex Karev and patient Ava/Rebecca top the list, followed by Izzy Stevens dating the ghost of Denny Duquette, and Japril's emotional roller coaster. Other notable messy pairings include Owen Hunt's complicated love life with Christina Yang, Teddy Altman, and Amelia Shepard, plus Jackson Avery's relationships with Maggie Pierce and April Kepner. These romances prove that love at Grey Sloan Memorial rarely follows the rules. 2025 also brought some jaw-dropping deaths across TV shows, including Grey's own Monica Beltran, whose quiet heroism in the hospital explosion shocked viewers. Iconic fan favorites like George O'Malley also left a lasting impact, with his heroic bus rescue cementing his place in the series' history. Other shows like Chicago Fire, FBI, and 911 saw their own heart-wrenching losses, reminding audiences of the fragility of life. Amid the chaos, Meredith Grey's evolution stands out. From a traumatized intern to a confident surgeon and loving mother, her journey embodies growth, resilience, and the enduring power of love and career ambition. Fans are also celebrating the return of fan favorites, including Addison Montgomery, while the current season keeps everyone on edge with Jo Wilson's life-threatening condition and her twins' uncertain future. Whether it's wild romances, shocking deaths, or unforgettable medical triumphs, Grey's Anatomy continues to deliver emotional, edge-of-your-seat drama that keeps fans coming back, episode after episode. Hey, lovely viewers, welcome to our channel Grey's Anatomy Official. The 10 craziest couples in Grey's Anatomy history ranked. The doctors on Grey's Anatomy we've come to know and love for 22 seasons are excellent at taking care of other people's bodies, but when it comes to managing their own hearts, that isn't really the case. Nobody can judge their instinct to find a mate at work. Their jobs are insanely stressful, and they spend so much of their time in the hospital, they practically live there, making office romances inevitable. Naturally, not every pairing is going to be as healthy as the relationship between Ben, Jason George, and Bailey, Chandra Wilson. But good relationships don't necessarily make for addictive, can't look away TV, you need a little mess. So, in celebration of the mess, here are 10 of the craziest couples on Grey's Anatomy, ranked from kinda sus to total hot mess. 10. Derek Shepherd and Rose. The love story between Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo, and Derek Shepherd, Patrick Dempsey, remains one of the most significant in all of TV history. Which is why the love story between Derek and Rose, Lauren Stamley, just couldn't hold a candle to what he and Mare had. The painful truth was that Rose was really just a rebound option for Derek after he and Meredith initially broke up, and that manifested in their inability to connect on a deeper level and his coolness toward her after they had sex. Worse, Rose got a little vengeful after she and Derek fizzled out, pretending that she was pregnant was further proof this whole situation was not good for either of them. 9. Owen Hunt and Teddy Altman. After this couple's years of almosts, missed connections, physical distance over the seasons, and even an attempt at an open marriage, you'd think their eventual commitment would be built to last. But Owen's, Kevin McKidd, need for stability and slight control issues meant butting heads with Teddy's, Kim Raver, strong-willed nature. Things finally reached their breaking point, and they called it quits at the end of season 21. In hindsight, Teddy cheating on Owen on their wedding day was probably a bad omen. 8. Owen Hunt and Christina Yang. Owen really wanted to be a parent, and Christina, Sandra Oh, didn't, a conversation they definitely should have had before getting married. Yet when she was really clear that she didn't want her future to include diapers, things got ugly. He cheated on her and high-key manipulated her into feeling guilty for prioritizing her career, sawing through her confidence like a bone in the They finally got divorced, but not without what felt like an eternity of anguish. 7. Owen Hunt and Amelia Shepard. Owen thought he was going to be able to create the family unit he so desperately wanted with Amelia, Katerina Scorsone, but their on-again, off-again partnership ended up being another strikeout. They too disagreed on starting a family, and Amelia's brain tumor caused her to make erratic, impulsive decisions that wore their dynamic down. His tendency to push made her withdraw, and their explosive fights made it evident their rushed marriage was a major oopsie. 6. Jackson Avery and Maggie Pierce. Who'd have thought dating your step-sibling would be a bad idea? Jackson, Jesse Williams, and Maggie Kelly McCreary were kinda doomed from the start due to the awkward nature of their situation, and with their constant fighting and Jackson's tendency to disappear, Jaggy was sometimes tough to witness. 5. Preston Burke and Christina Yang. Poor Christina put all her needs and boundaries on the back burner to be with the controlling Burke, Isaiah Washington, setting the standard for the show's most compelling bad romances. It totally wrecked us to see him humiliate her by calling off their wedding at the altar, giving them the dubious honor of having one of the most disastrous wedding ceremonies in Grey's Anatomy history. 4. Izzy Stevens and George O'Malley. Going from besties to lovers can be a beautiful blessing, or in the case of Izzy, Katherine Heigl and George T.R. Knight, a tragic mistake. They didn't exactly start off on the right foot, with that drunken one-night stand that ruined George's marriage to Callie, Sarah Ramirez, and their discovery that they couldn't recreate the same magic as that first night revealed a lack of chemistry. That, coupled with their guilt, did their romance in, shanking their friendship to death in the process. 3. Jackson Avery and April Kepner. Kicking off with a spontaneous sex sesh triggered by the stress of their medical board exams, Japril evolved into a model for a high-quality hot mess. After April, Sarah Drew moved on and got engaged to Matthew Taylor, Justin Bruning, Jackson had the bold audacity to stand up at their wedding and shout out his love for her. Their happily ever after hit severe road bumps with the death of their first child and a later divorce, but they were able to find their way back to each other. Still, their path rivaled Dorothy's in The Wizard of Oz in terms of intensity and the utterly insane things happening. 2. Izzy Stevens and Ghost Denny. Decades before ghosting became a thing in the popular lexicon, Izzy shocked audiences by dating a phantom. She and heart patient Denny Duquette, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, found love in season 2, but their bond was cut short by his heartbreaking death, which she was partly responsible for after cutting his LVAD wire to get him a transplant. But it was his return, in her mind, that got wild. In season 5, poor Izzy starts seeing Denny around the hospital and begins having full-on conversations, arguments, and even sex with him, which all ended up being signs of a tumor. Not exactly healthy, but hey, dating a ghost is easier than dating a human, eh? 1. Alex Karev and Ava/Rebecca Pope. Catching feelings for a patient who's suffering from amnesia is crazy work, and this storyline kept getting juicier and wilder as the seconds ticked on. Alex, Justin Chambers, not only stomped over doctor-patient ethics by getting googly-eyed for her but also went so far as to name the Jane Doe patient Ava, Elizabeth Reeser. Their bond got spectacularly twisted when she remembered her real name, Rebecca, and that she had a husband, which kickstarted a mental health spiral that included a suicide attempt. Alex eventually helped her get the care she needed, but the whole event was a long, strange trip indeed. Shonda Rhimes reveals the NSFW nickname Grey's Anatomy crew had for Patrick Dempsey's McDreamy. Shonda Rhimes is revealing another nickname that was associated with Patrick Dempsey's McDreamy on Grey's Anatomy. The creator and producer revealed in an interview for Lynette Rice's book How to Save a Life, the inside story of Grey's Anatomy, that there was an NSFW nickname for Dempsey's beloved doctor. We called him Dr. MC Screamy F. me during the pilot. McDreamy was the PG-rated version, she said via TV Line. It's really amazing that this thing that we came up with while shooting the pilot, just because Patrick Dempsey is so adorable, stuck. Considering the show is on ABC, simply going with McDreamy was definitely the safest option, but it's not surprising to know that there was a much dirtier version during Grey's Anatomy's early days. Dempsey starred on Grey's for the first 11 seasons until Drive Derek Shepherd was tragically killed off. He eventually returned in a recurring guest spot during season 17 when Meredith was in a coma due to COVID, and she was having beach dreams. As for whether McDreamy could make another surprise appearance, Dempsey shared in 2022 that it was up to the creators. He continued, "It was great to go back and do the show on the beach. It was an important moment. I think everyone was really tired of being locked down, and fans were happy and very surprised. We pulled it off without letting anyone know we were doing it. So that was great." Meanwhile, Grey's Anatomy is in the midst of its 22nd season. The mid-season finale in November ended on a cliffhanger that saw Camilla Luddington's Jo Wilson in heart failure while preparing for the birth of her twin girls. Even 22 seasons in, Grey's still manages to be unpredictable and keep fans on the edge of their seats, and even though the season has already killed off a major character, there's no telling what will happen with Jo and her twins. But fans will find out on Thursday, January 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. For those who are missing McDreamy, all seasons of Grey's Anatomy are streaming on Hulu, so people can go back and watch their favorite moments involving Derek. He may not have gotten the NSFW nickname to stick, but this information will make viewing a bit better and funnier, knowing what could have been. 8 most shocking character deaths of 2025. When we compare 2025 with previous years, the number of deaths hasn't been that high. At least, not when broadcast comes into play. Sure, shows like Chicago PD, NCIS, and FBI have routinely included homicide victims for the teams to work out. We haven't had to face the heartbreak from some of our favorite characters that we've had to in the past. Now, there are some shows that ended on cliffhangers and were abruptly cancelled. Maybe they would have included a death by the next season had they been allowed to continue. There are other shows that ended and haven't come back yet, so we could end up facing some shocking deaths based on 2025 events. For this, we're focusing on the deaths that happened in 2025, confirmed death, that were shocking in nature. Either we didn't quite see them coming, or we didn't quite see the way they would happen. Monica Beltran from Grey's Anatomy. I will be the first to admit that I saw Monica's death happening a mile off. There was so much focus on whether Link would die or not, that everyone seemed to forget that Monica was also close to Amelia and was on the floor at the time of the explosion. Now, going into the season, I didn't see the death happening the way it did. Throughout the episode, I could tell what the writers were going to do, but it didn't quite take from the shock element of it. Monica died without telling anyone she was injured. Her focus was on saving her patient and making sure Jules had the teacher needed at the time. There's a lot of heartbreak when you think of the way this all played out, and it's the silence of the death that made this one shocking. Vince Leone from Fire Country. Since the Fire Country Season 3 finale, we knew that Vince was likely to die. After all, as soon as the episode wrapped, we learned that Billy Burke wouldn't return to the series, and he was rather silent about the whole thing, telling us he wasn't happy with the decision. Neither were we. When we just knew what was going to play out, it was all about how the death would happen. And even knowing it was coming, we weren't quite ready for it. Fire Country gave us a story of a wife and chief trying to save her husband and subordinate. Yet, he ended up staying behind, because that was the type of man he was. Vince's death sent shockwaves throughout the firehouse. Sharon's grief, broken down as suffering on 2 levels, really hit home what this loss meant. Marco from Will Trent. It's easy to forget some of the guest stars of an episode, but there is no way to forget Marco, played by Tony Aparicio. This 14-year-old boy had his whole future taken from him, and it wasn't even because of anything he did. This boy didn't deserve what happened to him, and it was a tragedy that sat with Will after that, and it still will. While Will and Faith were chasing an armed suspect, they had no choice but to fire on the suspect. The bullet ricocheted and accidentally struck a teenager in the next apartment. Will and Faith tried to get this boy to the hospital, but he ended up bleeding out in the back of their car in Will's arms. While the death was ruled an accident, it didn't take from the shock factor. We know Will didn't mean to do it, and we also knew he would punish himself for that. He still hasn't really recovered from the tragedy. Will LaMontagna Jr. from Criminal Minds. After Will didn't return to Criminal Minds, Evolution for Season 2, we knew that there was a good chance that he wouldn't make it through Season 3 alive. After all, there were clear cuts, and so, we feared that something would happen to one half of the best cop couples on TV. Sure enough, we were hit with shock as JJ walked into the kitchen to find her husband had collapsed. He had just made it through a cancer scare, and then he ended up dying suddenly from an aneurysm. To make matters worse with this one, it happened off-screen, as Josh Stewart didn't even come back for his character's death. While it did mean the return of Reed in the next episode, it wasn't enough to justify this death. We just weren't expecting the events that would occur. Monica Pascal from Chicago Fire. Sticking with the spouses of main couples, one death we definitely did not see coming in 2025 was that of Monica Pascal on Chicago Fire. Monica was introduced at the start of Chicago Fire Season 13, along with her husband Dom. Dom Pascal was the new chief at Firehouse 51, and while he took time to grow on us, eventually, we could see that he wasn't a threat to Herman's future as chief at all. Herman was his own threat. Dom and Monica had their ups and downs, but they loved each other. And so, when it came to finding out that she had died, our hearts broke. It just seemed like so much had been left unsaid and undone for them, but isn't that what life is? This kicked off a bigger story with Dom finding out whether his wife's death was an accident or not. However, the most heartbreaking part was probably the shake of the head from Violet as Dom rushed into the hospital for his wife. She knows that loss all too well. Danny Rhodes from FBI. When we started FBI Season 8, all eyes were on whether Isabel would make it through. She had been left with her life on the line at the end of FBI Season 7, and the Season 8 premiere continued to make us wonder whether she would be written out. So, it was a huge shock when there was still a death, but not Isabel. Instead, Emilia Lobby's time on the series came to a devastating end. Danny saved other agents, including her partner, Scola, as shots were fired. She thought her vest would protect her, but it turned out that the shot hit lower than the vest covered. She later died with Scola by her side, leaving a mark on him as he realized that she sacrificed herself for him. There were no hints that this would happen, and it marked the first time FBI had killed off one of its main team members. It would also have a lasting effect on Scola, who would need to deal with the loss. Nikki Batista from Alert, Missing Persons Unit. The third season of Alert, Missing Persons Unit did something that did not go down well with viewers. It killed off its strongest character on the series, the female lead we were all tuning in for. To make matters worse, everything was handled off-screen. During the second episode of Alert, Nikki became the victim for the team to find. Of course, with her new husband and her ex-husband on that team, there were plenty of personal feelings as they raced to find her, especially once they learned that mob boss Charlie McGannon had taken her to make sure she didn't hand over evidence of his illegal activities to the FBI. In the end, Jason and Mike found her body in the middle of the woods. It told us that Nikki was most definitely dead, and it left us all devastated. The show wasn't the same after that, and arguably, it wasn't surprising that the ratings went down, and it was cancelled after Season 3. Bobby Nash from 9/11. Look, we knew there was a chance that we were losing Bobby Nash. The leaks were all out there from the funeral procession, but we hoped that it was all just a dream. Sadly, it wasn't, and 911 brought its most shocking and devastating death of 2025, and we still don't agree that it should have happened. When an incident happened at a research facility, a virus was released. This wasn't just any virus, though, and as Chimney was infected by a fast killer, the race was on to find cure. There was only one cure, though, and Chimney got it in time. That's when the shocking reveal came. Bobby had also been infected, but he didn't tell anyone. As the captain, he had to be the one to make the ultimate sacrifice, and it meant Athena and Bobby didn't even get the goodbye they deserved. It was all done through a window. Bobby collapsed from his organs shutting down in a moment that still has us sobbing just thinking about it, and we're still angry at 911 for doing this. We're still not even sure why 911 killed Bobby Nash. Grey's Anatomy fans think something truly terrible is coming in mid-season premiere. Here's what the Grey's Anatomy fall finale left the fate of Jo Wilson and her babies in jeopardy. While many fans have been worrying about the surgeon, these fans think there's someone else in true peril. All eyes are on Jo Wilson, Camilla Luddington, for the Grey's Anatomy mid-season premiere, but should we be worried about another character when Season 22 returns in January? According to some fans, yes. In a new thread on the show's Reddit fan page, some Grey's watchers began sharing their predictions for what's ahead when the series returns to resolve the cliffhanger of Jo's condition, and some fans were convinced it's not her who is in real jeopardy. The fall finale found Jo needing an emergency operation on her heart by Winston Dugu, Anthony Hill, after she began suffering distress due to her pregnancy with her and Lynx, Chris Carmack, twin babies. While she had initially opted for a less invasive surgery option, Winston determined she needed a more dangerous operation and realized, mid-procedure, he would need to perform an emergency C-section to birth the babies right then and there. Winston admitted he was not seasoned in the procedure and appeared nervous to perform it. So while some fans have been concerned for Joe's outcome, particularly given the foreboding nature of the look-ahead preview for the episode, airing January 8th, a good number of Redditors are more worried about the infants. I think worse comes to worse, one of the babies may pass, but something tells me they're about to boot Joe and Link, a third suggested. While Grey's Anatomy has certainly featured the death of many child patients over the course of its now 22 seasons, the children of the surgeons have usually been safe, with one very heartbreaking exception: Samuel, the first baby April, Sarah Drew, and Jackson, Jesse Williams, had, which was diagnosed with type 2 osteogenesis imperfecta and died shortly after delivery. That incident was hands down one of the most gut-wrenching things to ever happen on Grey's Anatomy and left April and Jackson with scars that affected their storylines for several seasons. If these fans' prediction is correct, then we're in for a very somber second half of the season indeed. There's no telling how yet another tragedy would impact Jo or her new marriage to Link. So tell us, are you worried about Jo or her babies when Grey's Anatomy returns for the mid-season? Why or why not? The Grey's Anatomy death that affected creator Shonda Rhimes the most. Grey's Anatomy has had its fair share of heartbreaking deaths, but one of the casualties hit so hard that it even upset series creator Shonda Rhimes. And no, we aren't talking about the controversial death of Patrick Dempsey's Dr. Derek Shepherd in season 11 of the ABC medical drama. Though that one was especially tough for fans, considering Derek and Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo, were the drama's central couple, Rhimes remains haunted by a different demise. During an appearance on the They Call Her Daddy podcast, Rhimes revealed that it was the passing of George O'Malley, T.R. Knight, in the season 6 premiere that hurt her the most. While fans were upset at losing one of the best Grey's Anatomy characters, Rhimes was sad about having to say goodbye to a colleague behind the scenes. George was really. That character is so beloved, Rhimes said. TR is such a lovely guy. That was such a hard thing to do. TR is so amazing. That was such a hard thing to do. He was wonderful. Rhimes also praised Knight's professionalism at the time, noting that he was fully committed to making George's death impactful, so much so that he even lay on a medical table for a scene in which a body double could have sufficed. For those who may need a refresher, let's revisit all the particulars about George O'Malley and how he reached the pearly gates on Grey's Anatomy. How did George O'Malley die on Grey's Anatomy? George O'Malley was portrayed as a flawed human being on Grey's Anatomy, as evidenced by his extramarital affair with Izzy Stevens, Katherine Heigl. At the same time, he was compassionate, likable, and great around patients, making him a fan favorite. The beloved character ultimately received a send-off for a hero. He died after being hit by a bus while saving someone else, which spoke volumes about the type of person he was. But George's death occurred amid a particularly tragic set of circumstances. At the time of his passing, he was set to embark on a new career as a medical surgeon. His life ended just as an exciting new chapter was set to begin. Plus, many viewers were especially heartbroken when George was killed off, as it meant there was no avenue for the character to return after T.R. Knight decided to part ways with the medical drama. Unfortunately, George's death wasn't the only major one to occur on Grey's Anatomy, nor will it be the last. The medical drama is still going strong, and that means our favorite characters could find themselves in harm's way at any given moment. Actor appointed to board of nonprofit focused on inclusion, education and media industry access for emerging creative talent. Black PR Wire, Los Angeles, the Television Academy Foundation today announced that actor Jason George has been appointed to its board of directors for a 3-year term. With an impressive career spanning 3 decades in television, film and stage work, George is best known for his role as Dr. Ben Warren on Grey's Anatomy, the hit ABC series created by Shonda Rhimes, now in its 22nd season. In 2018, Rhimes expanded his character in the spin-off series Station 19, where he continued to captivate audiences until 2024 while maintaining a presence on Grey's Anatomy. George's additional acting credits include roles on Mistresses alongside Alyssa Milano, playing the field with Gerard Butler, With This Ring featuring Jill Scott, and Barbershop with Anthony Anderson and Ice Cube. Beyond performing, George is dedicated to mentoring and inspiring future artists. He has lectured, hosted panels and delivered keynote speeches for at-risk youth groups, schools and universities, including the University of Virginia, his alma mater, and Duke Ellington School of the Arts. George earned his Master of Fine Arts in Acting from Temple University, where he served on the board for the School of Communications and Theatre. His passion for championing diversity in the arts is reflected in his service on the boards of SAG-AFTRA, the Motion Picture Television Fund NextGen Committee, and the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. He also serves on the Creative Council of Everytown for Gun Safety and collaborates closely with Moms Demand Action and the bipartisan gun safety group 97%. A longtime Television Academy Foundation advocate, George has participated in the College Television Awards and recently the Emmys Pickleball Slam Fundraiser and Media Educators Conference. Jason George has been a dedicated supporter of the foundation for years, giving his time, energy, and passion to help us advance opportunities for aspiring television professionals from all backgrounds, said Tina Perry, chair of the Television Academy Foundation. We're thrilled to welcome him to our board of directors, where his commitment to our mission will help us make an even greater impact inspiring tomorrow's Emmy winners today. My mother was an educator. She taught children with disabilities while I was growing up in Virginia, and that mission of education is ingrained in me, said George. I've seen firsthand the incredible impact the foundation has on opening doors for students who dream of working in this industry, and I'm honored to help champion the next wave of storytellers who will shape the future of television. Grey's Anatomy's Sarah Drew reveals her hardest scene on the show. Sarah Drew has reflected on the hardest scene from her time as April Kepner on Grey's Anatomy. In a recent interview, the actor looked back on an important storyline involving her character. She explained why filming that episode proved to be difficult, highlighting the personal and professional challenges. Sarah Drew says April's delivery scene in Grey's Anatomy was the hardest to shoot. Sarah Drew has revealed that April Kepner's devastating delivery episode in Grey's Anatomy was one of the most difficult scenes she has ever filmed. Speaking recently about her time on the ABC medical drama, Drew said the episode in which April and Jackson lose their newborn son remains the most difficult scene she has ever filmed. The storyline involved April carrying a baby diagnosed with osteogenesis imperfecta type 2, a fatal condition that ensured the child would survive only hours after birth. Drew shared, "When I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter Hannah, I had to play a labor delivery and death scene on Grey's Anatomy. I had to have an induction termination and my baby was born and died in my arms." The scene also required an extended shoot, with the production stretching across an entire day. The actress said, "I was 8 months pregnant and it took 10 hours to shoot that scene, and I went home and went into premature labor and gave birth a month early and she was in the NICU for 2 weeks." Reflecting on the experience years later, Drew acknowledged the toll the episode took on her. "It's definitely the hardest scene I've ever had to shoot. I laugh about it now. It was not funny at the time," she said. Despite the difficulty, Drew said she remains proud of the work and its impact. She described it as a beautiful story. Kate Walsh scrubbing back in as Addison Montgomery for Grey's Anatomy, Season 22. Kate Walsh's iconic and renowned neonatal surgeon is making her return to Grey's Anatomy for a special guest appearance on an upcoming episode of the show's current 22nd season, Entertainment Weekly can confirm. Walsh will reprise her role as the fan-favorite surgeon in the Grey's episode titled Strip That Down, airing on January 29, 2026. The exact circumstances surrounding her presence and the episode's plot are currently being kept under wraps, but considering how it's never a calm visit when Addison comes to town, it's safe to say fans should gird their loins. The character made her debut in Season 1 before joining the main cast for Seasons 2 and 3. Walsh went on to play Addison on the beloved Grey's spin-off Private Practice, 2006 to 2013, and routinely reprised the character on multiple seasons of The Mothership. Season 22's episode will mark the actress' first appearance since her multi-episode arc in Seasons 18 and 19. Regular watchers will recall that stress-filled saga that involved Addison and Tia, the pregnant clinical resident, getting hit by a car and ended with an absurdly complicated C-section to save the life of Tia's newborn. At one point, Addison even resorted to using a penlight to assess the baby's breathing. Thankfully, Addison, Tia, and Tia's tiny baby, later named Connor, all came out on the other side of that harrowing journey. And fans will get to see what Addison has been up to since she departed Season 19. The evolution of Meredith Grey. Every core member of Grey's Anatomy arrived on our screens wildly ambitious, slightly broken, and ready to grow. Over 2 decades of scalpels and second chances, the interns, residents, and attendings of Gray Sloan have evolved right in front of us, fighting to save lives and, just as often, finding ways to save themselves. But to understand just how far they've come, we have to go back to where it all began. In our new series, The Evolution of, we're going to take a moment to trace the essential parts of some of our favorite doctors' stories, starting with, of course, Meredith Grey. From the moment we met Meredith, she was a bundle of contradictions, a brilliant surgical student with a bright future, a core wound so deep that it would take years to fully unpack, and a desire to be loved, even if she couldn't figure out how to let herself be loved. We've watched our title character grow from a conflicted intern into a medical icon. Along the way, Meredith has stumbled, resisted, and occasionally run headfirst into danger. But she has also evolved into someone who knows her worth and chooses joy, which feels like a far cry from where she began all those years ago. Her origin story. For a long time, Meredith's story was dictated by generational trauma. As the daughter of Ellis Grey, a brilliant surgeon and emotionally distant mother, she was raised to be hardworking while denying her emotional needs. Her family traumas piled up. Her father, Thatcher Grey, walked out when she was 5. She discovered her mother mid-suicide attempt but was too young to fully grasp the implications. It was only years later that Meredith would begin to understand that her mother had already begun showing signs of early-onset Alzheimer's, a heartbreaking realization that would go on to shape much of her career. She found safety in Gray Sloan Hospital, then Seattle Grace, and escaped through medicine, where her natural instinct and curiosity would allow her to fix in others what she felt like couldn't be fixed in her own family. Standout moments. As with Pick Me, Choose Me, Love Me, the speech that's been seared into our collective memory, Meredith's most spectacular moments of growth have always been when she breaks through the wounds from her past and advocates for herself. When she made it clear to Derek Shepherd in the most poetic way possible that, yes, she really did want their relationship, it felt like a watershed moment for her. But she also came to realize she wasn't defined by her relationship. Just look at Meredith's face when, before departing Seattle for the last time, Christina Yang reminded her, "He's not the son, you are." Christina's affirmation was especially needed after Derek's untimely death, when Meredith was forced to live without him. She knew she could, but as she told him, she just didn't want to. While taking such a heavy emotional hit might have broken her when she was younger, Meredith moved forward, living life on her own terms and refusing to close off her heart, as bruised as it may have been. Meredith now picks and chooses according to her own desires but no longer avoids the sometimes painful vulnerability of love, especially when it comes to her children and her half-sisters, Lexi Grey and Maggie Pierce. In the operating room, Meredith's career has had a string of standout moments, like during the human pretzel surgery, where, for the first time, she was able to take point and fully identify a surgical plan before her attendings did. If the brilliance of Meredith's potential was ever in any doubt, she went on to take over as the Chief of General Surgery, win the Harper Avery Award, and lead medical trials with the potential for sweeping advancements in Alzheimer's therapy. But perhaps one of Meredith's greatest moments was when she realized that she didn't have to choose between her family and being good at her job. When her daughter Zola started showing signs of severe anxiety as well as a need to be challenged academically, Meredith moved her family to Boston, where Zola could attend a school that would be a better fit. Yes, it meant leaving Gray Sloan, Meredith's former safe place. But Meredith was smart enough to realize she was ready for new challenges as well. Some pitfalls. For Meredith, the authority figures in her childhood didn't keep her safe, so as a result, she has had difficulty trusting people as an adult. It has led to fights with her attendings and some ethically questionable behavior, like hiding clinical trial results to protect Adele Weber, getting suspended, and nearly going to prison for medical fraud. If the operating room is her safe place, then it means she has had to be extraordinary in order to secure that safety. It's a line of reasoning that's led to impulsive decisions that have threatened her physical safety, like holding a live bomb in a patient's chest until it could be safely removed, operating at gunpoint, and triaging people after a ferryboat disaster despite being overwhelmed and exhausted, a situation that led to her almost drowning. For a long time, there was no such thing as too much in Meredith's work life, a flaw that has led to both innovation and angst in equal parts. But the future looks bright. Meredith is a self-made woman, creating the family she didn't have, crafting a career that doesn't require her to compromise, and making the conscious effort to move past her own pain. She's grown, evolved, and poured herself back into the community who have supported her, both with expansive research and by nurturing the next generation of surgeons. For many viewers, Meredith Grey's evolution from a dark and twisty intern to a talented surgeon and a loving mother has echoed their own maturation journeys. She's a fully realized, smart, and confident woman who deserves all her wins. 20 Best Grey's Anatomy Episodes, Ranked. Since it debuted on ABC in 2005, Grey's Anatomy has surpassed 20 seasons and well over 400 episodes, so if you're sitting down to watch Dr. Meredith Grey's, Ellen Pompeo, journey from lowly intern to general surgery goddess, you have a lot to work through. But as with any long-running show, some episodes of Shonda Rhimes' medical drama are simply better than others. So when it comes to the Grey's Anatomy, which episodes are the best of the best? To that end, we've compiled 20 of the very best installments of the Grey's Anatomy right here on this list, from unexpectedly funny hours of television to some of the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching episodes of TV you'll ever watch in your life. Also, some of these great Grey's Anatomy episodes are two-parters and can't exist separately, so they share rankings here. From stunning season finales to self-contained hours, here are the 20 best Grey's Anatomy episodes, ranked. Once you've seen the ranking, drop a comment with your own favorite episodes. Which one would top your list? This article contains discussions of sexual assault and mass violence. 20 Walk on Water / Drowning on Dry Land, Season 3, Episodes 15 and 16. Disasters are a dime a dozen on Grey's Anatomy, but in the early days of the series, they still felt surprising and shocking, and that's definitely true of the Season 3 two-parter, Walk on Water, and Drowning on Dry Land. When Meredith and her fellow interns Dr. George O'Malley, T.R. Knight, Dr. Isabel, Izzy Stevens, Katherine Heigl, and Dr. Alex Karev, Justin Chambers, head to the site of a massive ferryboat crash in Seattle alongside their resident Dr. Miranda Bailey, Chandra Wilson. Leaving Meredith's best friend Dr. Christina Yang, Sandra Oh, back at the hospital, they're overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster. Alex finds a pregnant woman trapped under wreckage and saves her life, Izzy performs emergency surgery on a man's skull using a construction worker's drill, and George desperately tries to find an injured woman's son. Meanwhile, Meredith, who's watching over a young girl, ends up thrown into the water by an erratic patient. Ultimately, Meredith's then-boyfriend and Seattle Grace's neurosurgery chief Dr. Derek Shepard, Patrick Dempsey, finds Meredith as she's drowning and saves her, though it's a close call. The woman is blue when he pulls her from the water. While the audience anxiously waits to hear about Meredith, her friends are completely unaware of her near-death experience. The 1-2 punch of A Walk on Water and Drowning on Dry Land is great, even if the episode that immediately follows, Some Kind of Miracle, veers into straight-up absurdity when Meredith finds herself in limbo with a bunch of dead characters. 19. What I Am, Season 3, Episode 4. The doctors on Grey's Anatomy experience more than their fair share of medical emergencies, and in the early Season 3 episode, What I Am, Meredith shows up for work with a devastating stomachache only to discover that she needs her appendix removed. This episode might seem like a light, frothy, and ultimately frivolous entry, but it's anything but. Not only is it an incredibly funny hour with Meredith, who spends most of it on morphine and ranking all of her boyfriends by how good they are at kissing, but there's quite a bit of plot movement in this episode. Dr. Mark Sloan, Eric Dane, shows up to work at Seattle Grace full-time as the head of plastic surgery, driving both Derek and his soon-to-be ex-wife Addison Montgomery, Kate Walsh, insane, Dr. Preston Burke, Isaiah Washington, isn't sure his hand is ready to perform surgery again after a serious injury, and after getting rejected by Addison, Mark starts what becomes a long-running, on-again, off-again fling with orthopedic resident Dr. Callie Torres, Sarah Ramirez. Beyond that, Meredith finally realizes Derek is the one, but is shocked when he pulls away from her after her appendectomy. 18. Slow Night, So Long, Season 7, Episode 9. After the devastating mass shooting in Season 6 of The Grey's Anatomy, more on that later, Christina finds herself temporarily unable to perform surgery without suffering from severe PTSD, so when her new husband and the hospital's trauma attending, Dr. Owen Hunt, Kevin McKidd, tells her to get a job, she does. The problem? Christina decides to start bartending at Joe's, the local bar frequented by all of the hospital's doctors, and while Meredith and her fellow residents work an overnight shift, the attendings gather at Joe's and are horrified to see a completely inept and overly enthusiastic Christina pouring shots for bachelor parties. Plus, she makes a blue cocktail that she dubs the early onset Alzheimer's because you won't remember anything after you drink it. Derek finds it wildly offensive, and Miranda drinks several of them. As Christina gets drunker and drunker while working behind the bar, Meredith and Alex can't get in touch with the head of pediatric surgery, not Jessica Capshaw's Dr. Arizona Robbins at this point, but Peter McNichol's irascible Dr. Robert Stark, and perform a complex procedure by themselves. Also, Meredith's half-sister Dr. Lexi Gray, Kyler Lee, and Mercy West transfer Dr. Jackson Avery, Jesse Williams, treat two brothers with truly devastating injuries. Slow Night, So Long is funny and heartbreaking. It's honestly everything that's great about Grey's Anatomy. 17, Golden Hour, Season 7, Episode 15. Years before The Pit utilized a structure where each episode takes place over 1 hour, Grey's Anatomy did the same thing with the Season 7 episode, Golden Hour, which puts Meredith in charge of the emergency room for a night. As she says in the opening voiceover, an hour's not that long. In medicine, though, an hour is often everything. We call it the golden hour. That magical window of time that can determine whether a patient lives or dies. Between steamy shenanigans with Miranda and her then fling, Nurse Eli, Daniel Sanjata, and a series of patients Meredith needs to try and save in a hurry, including a dad trying to take his son to a hockey game and a guy with a fiancé from hell, and a very serious neurological condition. Golden Hour is, like so many of the best episodes of A Grey's Anatomy, emotionally gutting, chaotic, and funny all at the same time, somehow. And as Meredith notes in the outro, once that difficult hour is over, the clock resets and she does the whole thing all over again. 16, Get Up, Stand Up, Season 10, Episode 12. Weddings are quite literally never a normal affair on A Grey's Anatomy. It's like Game of Thrones, with way less bloodshed, honestly. That's definitely true of Get Up, Stand Up, an episode that technically centers around resident Dr. April Kepner's Sarah Drew wedding to EMT Matthew Taylor, Justin Bruning, but accomplishes quite a lot of other narrative stuff within its hour. By this point in Season 10, besties Meredith and Christina are at odds. Meredith wants to believe that she can be a great mother and a great surgeon, and Christina believes that Meredith is falling behind, and their furious argument during their fitting for April's bridesmaid dresses is an all-timer. Grey's Anatomy, a spat. Elsewhere, Derek is fielding calls from the in-universe president of the United States, who's never named, asking him to help with a brain mapping initiative, and Jackson is struggling with his feelings for April as her wedding approaches. Even though he's ostensibly happily dating resident Dr. Stephanie Edwards, Jerrica Hinton. Encouraged by some words of wisdom Mark gave him before he died, Jackson does, in fact, get up and stand up during April's wedding and asks her to run away with him. This, incredibly, works, leaving Stephanie and Matthew bereft, all the guests shocked, and setting up one of the show's most vital romantic relationships. 15, Now or Never, Season 5, Episode 24. George barely gets anything to do during Season 5 of A Grey's Anatomy, which explains why actor T.R. Knight chose to leave the show after it concluded, but there's no denying that Shonda Rhimes gave him an incredibly dramatic send-off. As the original interns wait for Izzy to wake up from a risky surgery meant to remove her lingering brain tumor, Meredith and Derek struggle to find time to head to City Hall and quickly get married, and Christina struggles with her feelings for Owen. Then, everybody finds out that George, inspired by Owen's history as an Army veteran, is enlisting as a military medic, and Miranda and several other doctors decide to hold an intervention to try and talk him out of it. Meredith and Derek, in one of the show's most famous scenes, get married on a post-it with vows that include no running and love each other even when we hate each other. In arguments throughout the series, they frequently invoke the post-it. However, everything is quickly derailed when an unidentified and grievously injured patient shows up in the after saving a woman and subsequently being dragged by a bus. The patient is George, and despite everyone's best efforts, he dies from his horrific injuries as Izzy has her own near-death experience. It was gutting to say goodbye to George, but this was a heck of an exit. 14, Dark Was the Night, Season 8, Episode 9. When Christina's cardiac surgery mentor, Dr. Teddy Altman, Kim Raver, marries a patient, Henry Burton Scott Foley, who needs health insurance for multiple chronic conditions, she doesn't expect to fall in love with him, but she does. And a marriage that was originally for insurance and convenience becomes very real. Unfortunately, though, Henry needs a lot of medical care, and while he's mulling over the possibility of going to medical school late in life after some further treatments, much to Teddy's chagrin, he experiences a major health setback in Season 8's Dark Was the Night, and is rushed to surgery. Also, while all of this is going on, Meredith and Derek learn that it's unlikely that they'll be able to adopt the baby of their dreams. Zola, and Meredith leaves in an ambulance with Alex to go pick up a newborn in need of advanced care from a small rural hospital. Teddy, who needs to tend to another emergent patient, insists to both Owen and their colleague Dr. Richard Weber, James Pickens Jr., that Christina can and should do Henry's procedure, but she also insists that they not tell Christina that it's Henry on the table. When Christina discovers a tumor on Henry's heart, she's confused as to why Richard won't stop attempting CPR. In the scene where Owen tells her that she's just declared Henry dead, Sandra Oh does some career best work as she comes to terms with what just happened. Add in an ambulance crash for Alex and Meredith, and you've got a pretty impactful hour. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.